Hello, everyone. This is probably the last lecture I'm going to record today. I've been talking all day. I'm kind of tired. But it's kind of an important one, especially to get us thinking and going regarding the grant writing process. One of the things that you got to figure out early on for this project is, well, where do I look for these grant proposals? Where do I look for the call for papers? Okay. So here I just did Science Grant Database search, and it drew up all of these different websites. So a lot of these, like for example, any .gov website you find, you can go into these. You can find earlier grants. You can find grant calls for grants in websites like this. This is a very useful website. This might cross list with the National Science Foundation and then NASA. Government websites in America, in the Bahamas, or whatever can be really useful. Now, if you do plan to go and do a real grant at some point, like let's say to help with, Dorian recovery and all of that, local sources in the Bahamas and Nassau, especially, are going to be probably your best bet. This is going to be, this could be useful for our mock grant project. But really, unless you have a lot of grant writing experience, you're probably going to want to stay away from government grants for a while until you've got some practice. They receive a lot of applications and etc. So here's another one: 100 places to find funding for research. This is the Open Education Database. You can see there's scholarships and financial aid and stuff available through this. This is a listing here of all these different kinds of grants. Now this is, if it's hard to see, it's oedb.org, okay, and then it's under the research funding. This is going to give you a bunch of websites that you can go through, okay. So here's some general ones. You've got the Fulbright, you've got Spencer, the NEA, Amazon evidently does grants. Who knows? But these are some of these are government run out of America. Others aren't. They might be private. National or social and civil grant foundations. So here, the Pew Trust, the NED. SSRC. So these are a lot of really big names. So we have the Guggenheim, the NEH again. So these are all like very useful places you could go to just look and see, okay, well, here's the grants stuff that they're asking for. Here's something that actually might be a little more in line with your fields. The National Science Foundation, engineering, physical sciences, parks, engineering again. So you can see there's just tons of websites out there and tons of funding organizations for those of you in medicine, right? Here's a bunch for health. So you can see there's 100 here that you can, and for these projects, just go in, choose one, and then use that as the basis for the grant. We're not trying to get the grant, okay? We are simply trying to set up the parameters for it, okay, so that we can do our little project. Here, this is going to cross-list some of the same stuff that we saw on the other page. Here, for example, some extra research stuff you can do. A grant reviewer gives his or her story, peer review, developing research plans. There's all kinds of extra resources that you can find through the internet. This is actually why the internet is useful. It's not just for dumb cat videos. University of Washington, this is probably pretty limited because, or it's going to be redundant to some of these other websites. So you're going to find a lot of these same kind of paths going forward. Here's the NSF, and you can go through your research areas. So you see, this might actually be really useful for your teams. So if you want to go into the biological sciences, now for some of these, like if you were actually going to apply for them, you would have to be American citizens, just as I would have to be a Bahamian citizen to apply for some grants down there. Others are international. Okay, so if you really go trying to seek funding, some of these would be international grants that you could potentially get. Here are some grants and special programs for undergrads. Do you know any undergrads who might need some free money? These are things to look up. These are things to look for. Okay, there's tons of free money out there. You just have to know where to look. Then there's one more website that is actually pretty useful. I've heard. I have never used it, and it's called Instrumental.com. They leave out the A here, and this is a cross-referencing database that helps you to match up open grant opportunities with the highest return on investment for specific projects. So if you find yourself later in your career, really needing to apply for grants, this actually is a pretty useful database. These other ones are going to work fine. Okay, these other ones we just looked at, they'll work fine. Okay, but this, you have to pay for this program. Okay, and as you can see, it ain't cheap. $75 per month. Now you can do a 14-day free trial, and just toy around with it if you want. But I would be really careful because I've done this before too, where I sign up for something, I forget to get rid of the free trial, and then I start getting billed for it. I won't embarrass myself by telling you how one of them went for I think 3 years, and I totally had no idea that I was paying for it for 3 years. Anyway, yeah. So just be careful if you try that. But you can see here, you can kind of browse through some of the grants. And these are all, here's some international grants for nonprofits. Here's grants for education, grants for HIV research, grants for the arts. I mean, you see that this is actually a database that's going to cross-reference, state by state if you're in America, or by the subject. So those are all, and just use Google, right? If you're having trouble figuring out, well, where do I go to even find these grant proposals? Science grant database, Google search, and you're going to find tons of these. Okay, so when you guys are in your teams, just kind of pick through them, kind of figure out which field you'd like to apply in. Is it going to be hurricane recovery? That's one. That's something that I think would be valid. Like I said, because I'm trying to get you guys aware of the grant funding opportunities around you, you might want to go with a Bahamian source if you can find them. And that would simply be Bahamas Grant Database, Bahamas Grant Provider, Bahamas Grant, whatever. Okay. So Google in this case actually can be your friend. So I just wanted to kind of point to this before we even get started, and before my voice, before I lose my voice, which I think I'm just about to. So anyway, I hope that helps and demystifies that a little bit. So this will be a good first step for us as we move on into the semester. So thanks.